Hey there. We are so excited to have you today. This is the first in a series of videos where we're going to help you become the best possible candidate for a job or internship you could possibly be. And today we're going to cover everyone's most favorite topic uh, in this industry, and that is resumes. And we're going to answer if you have a good resume or not, and we're going to go through some basic resume principles that are going to help you become the best possible candidate you can be. So, we pulled this sample from Google. This is the third one we found. This was made by a company as a sample, so this Jane Smith isn't a real person. And anything that we talk about with this resume isn't to put our fictitious Jane Smith down. It's to understand why this resume could be a lot better than it is. So let's begin. The first thing we want to talk about is the design of the resume. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about are the fragments that we have here. So you want your resume to be written basically in sentence fragments, and this resume does a good job of that. However, for the sake of design, you don't need periods after sentence fragments. It'll look a lot nicer if you take these sentences off the end of everything, because it'll make the page feel less cluttered. It'll add a better flow to the page. You want people to flow through your bullet points. Second design principle we want to talk about is utilizing all the space that you can. So you'll see here, this April 2006 to present, New York, New York here. If we were to take that and move it and align it on the right, that's going to spread out the page and it's going to make everything easier to read. It's very hard when everything's kind of scrunched together like this. So make sure you space the page and just move things over to the right, like dates and locations. Okay, awesome. So those are a couple of design elements we noticed with the resume. Let's continue. Next thing we want to talk about is the career objective that we find on the top of the page. So before we do that, let's look at the definition of objective. Definition is something that one's efforts or actions are intended to attain or accomplish. It's a purpose, it's a goal, it's a target. This objective statement is actually not an objective when we read it. It says administrative assistant with 6+ years of experience working directly for the president of 3M Inc., a Fortune 500 company. Possesses impeccable written and verbal communication skills and excellent interpersonal skills. So this actually isn't an objective. It doesn't match this definition. This is actually something like a summary or a profile where she's tying all of her experience together. So this is actually very well written, but it shouldn't be called a career objective. It should be called a summary or a profile. The other reason I suggest never to use a career objective at the beginning of the page is because it violates the proving value resume principle. The whole point of the resume is to prove all the value you can. And a career objective talks more about what the candidate wants instead of what the employer wants. So let's make sure that we get rid of these career objectives, and if we do start with some sort of introduction like this, we label it a summary or a profile so that you can explain how you're going to add value to the company. Alright, next up, let's talk about present tense and past tense. So this position she's currently at, so there's no problem that this is written in present tense. However, there is a problem down here where the job is ended and everything is being talked about in present tense. You shouldn't do that. And the reason is, it's just generally confusing. You might hear people tell you, oh, well, people know what you mean. But just fundamentally, think about it. Imagine that I just went to the grocery store and I had this conversation with my wife. Let's say I said, I'm going to the store. And my wife said, oh, great, can you get some milk? And I would say, but I already went. And then we're both confused. So it would have been better if I had just said, hey, I went to the store just a minute ago. Right? So that's really, it's important to distinguish just those basic fundamental common sense things. Next up, the richest man in the world is a little bit confused. So let's zoom up to Bill over here and figure out why. It's this core competencies section. We could talk about this for a long time. This is not a bad section inherently like the objective is. This could actually be very useful. But there's a couple problems. One, you don't need a core competency section and an additional skills section. You should have one or the other. And one other problem we see here is this customer service bullet point: cost efficient, detailed and organized, supplier relationship. One, I don't think supplier relationship is a core competency. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And another thing is, look at how awesome this person is. Everyone is awesome and everyone has value. It's just a matter of being able to prove it, you know? And so saying, you know, she's worked for the president of a Fortune 500 company for 6 years. She's presently there. Why would that be cheapened by just labeling it customer service, cost efficient, and detailed and organized, and supplier relationship? You should use the bullet points to write a statement and logically prove these things. You don't want to just say them. This is something I call the resume theory of relativity, and you never want to violate that principle, because the principle states that when, you know, like items on any resume are going to be treated the same unless it's differentiated in some way through logic. And a high schooler could put customer service right here, and so could she. But she's obviously had more experience in it. So this weakens the resume. If you have more questions about that, feel free to comment and we'll answer. Alright, one of our last things here. Let's look at this additional skills section. This is just sloppy writing. Awarded an employee travel award. You don't want to do that. It just sounds weird. You know, there's just these common sense things that you can nitpick to death, but honestly, saying awarded an award is not the way you want to go. Write with some creativity so that you sound intelligent. This person's obviously intelligent, but it looks like the company that made this wasn't so much on that spectrum. Which leads me to this. This resume was written by a company called Resume Genius. Look out for companies like this. If you Google make a resume, lots of these guys are going to pop up. And none of them will give you a good product because they can't give you the kind of attention that you know, a one-on-one coach could. But then at the same time, there's also problems in that side of the industry. So what we're trying to do at Joyful Job Search is find a middle ground where you get an excellent design, a good-looking resume, and you also get awesome content that's personalized to you. But anyway, get out of here, Resume Genius. So please, keep Joyful Job Search in mind for your tips and advice and any services you need, and we'll be happy to help you out. Thank you so much.